So today, like what I've decided to do instead of going through like a formal talk with you guys, is to do more question and answers towards the end, but to also just sort of open the hood and let you look kind of behind the curtain at Three Circle Church and what we've been able to do. The topic of today, of course, the first week was time machines and all that other kind of good stuff, and then I gave you guys some tools, some resources, that you could use to just start looking and evaluating just all things systems and all that good stuff. I think we called it ministry inventory or something like that last week, or the last time that we gathered up together. This week, what I want to do is I want to talk about how you can systematize your church, and it's not as complicated and complex. For some reason, when the word system is used, people want to set their hair on fire. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's just crazy. Why in the world are we talking about systems? And they think about it, in terms of algebra or whatever, and so I guess I'm a simple mind, so I can only have, simple thoughts, and have like simple methodology and all that other kind of stuff. And so my hope and my desire would be, is to sort of disarm this panic button that we try to push, every time we start talking about systems, and to show you how we went about systematizing a church that was in existence for 16 years. Okay. A church that was fast, that had been growing at a very rapid clip, and to show you kind of how we did it. And so at the end, then I can field questions from your context to kind of help you decide and figure out, how you might go about systematizing and laying out systems inside of your church. All right. And of course, I'll be rolling some principles in there as well. And so, the big overarching thing that we've talked about in the last couple of cohorts, has been, that great systems begin with the end in mind. All right. The problem that I encounter often is that you kind of move into a church which already has a flow, which already has things that they're doing. And so you've got to keep the ship afloat that you're on while you're building the other ship. Does that make sense? And like, that is super complicated, and hard, and you've got to make decisions and all that other kind of stuff. But there is a way that I've discovered over the course of 20 plus vocational years in ministry in churches, that you can keep the ship afloat, while you're building this other ship, if that makes sense. And so the decisions that I made at Three Circle Church, when I came on staff, was to just wear the culture for a while, was to wear the ministry leaders for a while. I didn't, offer any suggestions. I didn't offer any tweaks. I didn't offer any modifications at all. I just communicated at a high level with my lead pastor, hey, this is kind of the method behind the madness. I'm not going to be all up in everybody's grill. I'm not going to be scheduling a bunch of meetings and telling them what they need to change and repair and fix and all this other kind of stuff. I just want to wear it for a while. And so I submitted to him kind of 90 days worth of work that I was going to do beneath the surface, before I started having conversations with those that were on the team. Does that make sense? Welcome to the party, Adrian. So what I started doing is I submitted about 90 days worth of heavy lifting that I wanted to do beneath the surface type stuff, like in order to provide the type of infrastructure, so it's almost like building the shell of this new boat before I had to have any conversations whatsoever with the team. All right. So that's what I did initially. And so, gosh, I wish I could pull up that document that I had shared with my lead pastor of, so like, here's 90 days of stuff that I'm going to do prior to, making any big major changes or having any big major conversations. So then after, wearing the culture for about 90 days, 120 days, then I slowly and surely, how are you doing, Adrian? I slowly and surely began the process of systematizing our church. All right. Now here's the path that I chose to go down. And This might be the right path for you. It may not be the right path for you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my Google Drive folder, and I am going to share my screen with you and just show you kind of how I began the process of creating systems inside of our church. Systematizing really our church would be the better way to say that. Let me share my screen with you guys. Let's see here. So what I did, all right, you see my screen? Now you're seeing the back end. You're seeing the back end stuff. All right, so this folder down here, this folder that I'm hovering over with my mouse right now, called the 3 Circle Way folder. That was one of those 90-day things that I told my lead pastor I was going to do. I was like, I need to build kind of the skeleton of the folder, the virtual folder that's going to house all of our systems. All right. And so prior to that, I actually, because I'm a huge fan of Google Drive. I'm a huge fan of Google Drive. I don't know if you guys have a corporate account with Google Drive, but it's free for nonprofits, and you can actually get, Blake at 3circlechurch.com. It's a Gmail account. It's a phenomenal tool. So prior to me building out this folder, the first thing that I had to do was move them off of GoDaddy email accounts, believe it or not, to a nonprofit Gmail account so that I could have access to this very powerful resource, in my opinion, Google Drive, called Google Drive. And so, after we kind of did all that, which was kind of the prep work, it's kind of the stuff that I needed to do in order to build the new ship, right? I formed all of that, and then I created this folder called the 3 Circle Way, okay? So before I shared this with anybody, like, I went in here and I made the decision, these are the things that need to be housed inside of the 3 Circle Way folder. I need events, I need our leadership path in there, communications, guest services, Hope Center, Resource Center, worship arts, you get it, right? So all of this stuff is housed inside of here. Then after I kind of built the infrastructure for what we wanted to house inside of the 3 Circle Way folder, which houses all of our systems, by the way, what I did is I built what I called a systems revamp and creation team. And so, so what I did, it didn't matter, because at this point, I've had 90 days to 120 days to sort of wear the culture. And so guess what I'm picking up on along the way is who's organized and who's not, right? I'm picking up on along the way of who has a pretty good systematic head on their shoulders and who doesn't have a good systematic head on their shoulders. And so after I sort of built this infrastructure and I just kind of wore the culture, for a long period of time, I then began to assemble, a systems creation and revamp team. I don't think I called it that. I think I called it something much cooler. I think I called it the brain trust is what I called it. And I got that from that, what's the name of that television show? Scrubs. You guys remember Scrubs? All right. So there was a janitor on Scrubs who formed what he called a brain trust, and they would meet in the janitor's closet and discuss all kinds of crazy stuff, right? So what I did is I created a brain trust, all right, of people that at this point I knew were really good at systems. They could kind of speak my same language and all that other kind of stuff. And so, we met together for the first time, and I sort of unpacked what I wanted them to know and what we were about to do. And I introduced them for the first time the 3 Circle Way. So this is a folder that's going to house all of our systems inside of our church. And then I clicked on that and I showed them, I said, here's all the folders that we've got to fill full of content. All right. Because obviously the pro to having it on Google Drive is what? It's in a central location, which means that you can share it with everybody. It's not on somebody's computer. It's not on, I think we left that on somebody's computer. You know what I'm saying? That is no longer with us or no longer on staff. It's a central, it's a device that you can centrally locate a document, and you can share it and unshare it with with like anybody that you want to. You can also give them Eddington privileges, or they can be stripped away from their privileges. You know what I'm saying? So what we did in that first meeting is I shared this folder with everybody inside of that meeting, and we just assigned folders to one another. So let me just give you kind of an idea of under the hood of what one of these folders look like. All right. So if you click on family ministry, you know, you've got some content in there. You got Three Circle Junior. All right. So look at this. Here's all their branding located in that one folder. That if I am a preschool director at another campus, I have access to all this. All right. So I don't have to call the preschool director every time I need a logo. Like, I know where it is. I'm not going to screw anything up because I don't have editing privileges. You know, it's housed right here inside of this document. Okay. Diaper procedure. If you click on this, you know, you got the way that we change diapers at Three Circle Church. Across all of our campuses, they have access to all that. So there's 5 steps, obviously, you know, on how we change diapers. And you can see the care that kind of went into creating this, you know what I mean? Which I'm very much an advocate of, like, you know, throwing logos on everything, you know what I'm saying? Because I think that speaks to people when they read the procedure, is that they took the time to take a logo and to drop it inside of this document. Does that make sense? And so that's like one of the reasons why I think, you know, I think that is important. And if you go back to family ministry, all of your waivers are inside of here. So anything that you need, you know, is going to be housed inside, you know, our check-in procedures, you know, all this good stuff. It shows you, you know, it shows you how to check in first-time families and all that jazz. And so we did this for every single major ministry stream. Now, obviously, I have a big team, you know, of people that draw a paycheck from Three Circle Church. And so you may look at this and go, oh my gosh, that's so overwhelming. You know, that's going to take me forever. Like, it really didn't take me forever. One, because I've got a team of people that were in there with me that I called my systems revamp and creation team. So we assigned folders, and we met, like, I think we met like every other week for a pretty long period of time. We met like every other week, and we would just update on what we got done, what was still left, you know, all that other kind of stuff. And so here's one of my folders that I had. This is all of our capital campaign stuff right here. All of our branding for it. All of our funding, like, you know, all that good stuff. It's got everything that we need. And like, if somebody needs something, they already have access to it. So they don't have to call me and ask me questions about, you know, where's the Engage logo at or wherever. Because think about that. The reason why this is important is because time is money, right? And like, we're in the stewardship business the last time I checked. And so if I have to stop and take a phone call, every time somebody needs a document that's housed on my computer somewhere, then, man, that's eating at time, which is eating at money. And like, that becomes a steward issue. That becomes a stewardship issue, right? You know, so what I've done is I've removed myself out of the equation by creating this document that speaks for me, even though I'm not even on the phone having to communicate it, right? So this document here speaks our standards. It speaks our language. It helps to create the culture that we're trying to create across all of our campuses without me having to set up an hour meeting with everybody that lives inside of our organization over a period of time. So while there's a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of work on the front end, think about the amount of time that this saves you on the back end. Okay? It makes you more efficient. It takes something that would typically take somebody about 3 hours to accomplish, and we've broken it down into easy bite-sized steps that they can accomplish, and it usually takes them, you know, 30 to 45 minutes to accomplish it at that point. Make sense? All right, so that's the first thing that we did. So here's kind of the process that we're in right now. Okay, so here's kind of the process that we're in right now. Is we knew that we were going to have to put some systems that needed to be revitalized, that needed to be scrapped, some of them even, that needed to be retooled, that needed that there needed to be bigger conversations had about those. Here's kind of my philosophy on this, and you may completely disagree with this, but this is my philosophy on this. Like, you can't change the system, right, until you know what you're doing first, right? Until you know what they're doing with following up on first-time guests, until you know what they're doing with scheduling baptisms and how they schedule baptisms and all the tools and resources that goes into making a person get baptized and go in public with their face and towels and blah, 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 blah. You can't really begin to tweak the system until you know what they're doing currently. And so the decision that we made was we made the decision to go ahead and house every single thing that they were doing, right? Now we're beginning to have the strategic conversation. Now that we know what we're doing, is it working? Now that we know what we're doing, is it working? That's the question. That's the strategic question that we're asking right now. Because there's probably some things that we're doing that are awesome that don't need to be changed. Or if they do need to be changed, it's just a slight tweak. It's just a slight modification. So there's nothing major that needs to take place in order for us, to make that to move that from a good system to a great system. You know what I mean? It's just slight little tweaks and modifications that need to transpire and take place. But there are some things that need to be overhauled, like need to be completely stripped down and rebuilt again, if that makes sense. And so the way that we chose to do that was to house everything that we're doing right now, the good, the bad, and the ugly, house it all in the 3 Circle Way folder, and then begin to ask that question. All right, this is what we're doing. Is what we're doing working? Is what we're doing working? So if we set a baptism goal of 150 people, is the baptism system and process that we have in place, is that going to help us get that 150, or is that going to serve as a barrier, right? Does that make sense? Okay, you're tracking with me. All right, sweet. So the way that we are doing that right now is in our first meeting of 2018. I had to think for a minute what year we're in. Sometimes I forget what year I'm in. That's the reason why I have a great little system of putting a watch on every single day so that I can look down and it tells me the date and what year it is, okay? So, what we made the decision to do is one time per month. Now, we're not doing it every single week. Yeah, we're not even doing it twice a week. What we're doing right now is we're setting aside one day a month, and on that one day of the month, I meet with our ministry leadership team. And so our ministry leadership team, that's the level inside of our organization where all of our campus pastors live. All right, so they live at that level. If you lead a major ministry stream at the original campus, you live at that level as well, right? Does that make sense? So everybody that lives at that ministry leadership team level, they come to a one time a week or a once a month meeting, and we will basically pick the system of that month, and we'll make decisions about, is it working? What can we do better? And like the goal before we meet the next time, the goal is to fix that system, to get it into operation. We'll have a conversation on it the next time that we gather up. And then after we gather up and have that conversation about, did we fix it? Is it working better? Is it implemented? We'll have all of those conversations, and then we'll start moving on to the next system. Now, that may sound like long and laborious, but we're a real big organization. Like, the only way to eat an elephant the last time that I checked is one bite at a time. There's one bite at a time. But like, you can take big chunks out of that elephant, because keeping in mind, some of the systems that you have in place right now are working fine. So once you get that centrally located folder and all of your systems on paper, you're going to realize that you're better than what you think you are. Because right now you probably think you suck. All right. Because I thought that we sucked. You know what I'm saying? The way I first came on staff, but you're probably better than what you think you are. And so once you get all that stuff in place, then you can begin to focus in on the things that you know need to be tweaked and modified. So the first MLT meeting that we had, here at Three Circle Church is I introduced them to two tools. One, our iPod manual for our campuses, which kind of sets clear expectations. That's the easiest way that I know how to describe that manual. It sets very clear expectations for what's expected from the original campus to the other campuses, and then essential support document. So we're working on that right now. All right. And so we actually have a meeting this Thursday that we're going to tweak, modify, have a conversation, and that system will be done. That's two gigantic, by the way, pieces inside of our multi-site folder, two gigantic pieces. Then we'll start asking the questions like, okay, so how are we following up with our first-time guests? And is that working? Is that operating correctly? Is it operating as efficiently as it can be? All right. So that's what we'll do. And guess what? We'll continue to have to do that because the last week that the last day of the cohort, I'll actually have a conversation about how it's never really finished. But that's true. It's never really finished because the systems that you have in place right now are going to support you for the size organization that you are right now. But the moment you grow, and Dan Riley, my friend, he told me, he said, when you grow by 1,000, then all of those systems that you had at the size that you were before growing by 1,000 are now irrelevant. That they don't work anymore. And so we're continuing a conversation that will always have commas on the end of it. It's never going to have a period. We're done. All right, we're done. All of our systems are good, because boom, we'll grow by 500, we'll grow by 600, we'll grow by 750, we'll grow by 1,000, and then all of a sudden we've got to go, oh crap, now those systems aren't working. It's not supporting the size organization that we are now. And so we'll continue to have those conversations. Those once a month MLT meetings are gold because it helps us to look at our systems, identify the issues, and fix them before we get together that next month. Now, the question that you probably have is, how does this transfer over to me? Because, Blake, you're at a church of 3,000. You have 40-something people that are on staff. You got a lot of individuals, that are kind of helping you get all this stuff done. And so you can quickly begin to stack up excuses. And in my opinion, and I'm just going to give it to you raw and real, there are no excuses. There are no excuses because you've got great people inside of your church that would love to help you build systems. Now, you got some that wouldn't want to do this, that, the word systems scares them. It sends them into panic mode. They start breaking out into hives. But I guarantee you that you could probably, if I gave you just 10 minutes, you could probably make a list of individuals inside of your church that are good with this kind of stuff, that are organized, that run a rigorous schedule, with their own personal lives, that you could begin to build a team with. And so what I would do, because you guys have probably been inside of your church for a very long time, is what I would start doing initially is figuring out, what are the bones of this infrastructure? We chose Google Drive. You may choose something completely different. That may not be a part of your biorhythm. Google Drive, I believe that the Lord invented Google Drive for Blake Stanley. You know what I'm saying? You may not believe that. You may have a completely different thing. So figure out what works for your church. I'm just telling you what we do, but there's all sorts of great things that are out there. Dropbox is out there, that can house folders and big videos and all that other kind of stuff. But we just chose Google Drive because I think it's probably the easiest tool and resource to share with the rest of your team. And people have instant access to everything that you do as a church at their fingertips. And so let's just pretend you came over to the right side and you started using Google Drive. All right. Let's just say that you started using Google Drive. What I would do is I would block out time during the week, because if you don't budget time for it, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it because there's going to be, irons in the fire, and people are going to be calling, and, you're going to have all this stuff going around, floating around in your head and heart and all that other kind of stuff. And it's just going to distract you. So budget some time every week for an extended period of time to build, or whatever the name of your church is, Way. So us, Three Circle Way, we built that folder, Three Circle Way. And then I built all of those subfolders inside of that. And then after I did that, so after I kind of built the guts and I felt good about it, then I began to put together my team. my systems revamp and creation team that we called the Brain Trust. All right. And we got together and I began to unpack for them, what my idea of systems was, what my idea of systems wasn't, which is probably more important. And then we just began to make assignments. And so we would literally meet together for that day. And I would go, okay, Brittany, you're going to take care of this. Selena, you're going to take care of this. Jasmine, can you take care of that? Yes, 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 yes. And so, I was keeping notes on all of that stuff. And then okay, so 2 weeks from now, we're going to come back and those things are going to be done, right? Yes. Okay, sweet. So then we would schedule the next meeting inside of that meeting at the end of that meeting. Boom, we would schedule it and we'd come back together. All right, let's talk about what we said we were going to get done. So I would go over my minutes from that last meeting. All right, we said we were going to get this done. Was that done? Yes, it was done. Sweet. Well, what about that? Well, no, it's not. And here's why. Okay, cool. Let's continue to work on that. You know what I'm saying? And so little by little by little by little, like we begin to take everything that we're doing as a church and dumping it into those folders until we got to a place where it was like, holy crap, we did it, right? We did it. Then after I did all of that, like after I kind of walked through those steps with the systems creation and revamp team, then what we do every year is we have this big calendar meeting, for lack of a better term. It's basically, a big vision casting meeting that we do, and we usually do it off-site. This year we did it at the Grand Hotel. And so the Grand Hotel is this awesome hotel in Point Clear. It's a beautiful place. And so we rented one of their ballrooms. And so it was at that point that I rolled out the 3-Circle Way folder to the entire team. And I celebrated our revamp and creation team, and I wouldn't have been able to do this without them. But here's the deal. Like, you guys are going to have all of the systems at your fingertips. Who do you think was extremely happy? Well, our entire team, but especially our campus pastors. I mean, they were, oh my gosh, for the first time ever, like, I'm going to know what the diaper change protocol is. I mean, all those little things that you don't think about, like all of those things were housed inside of that folder. And we were able for the first time to stand up and say everything that we do here at 3-Circle Church. And of course, it's not perfect. And we, still had to dot I's and cross T's and all that other kind of stuff. But for the most part, everything that we do as a church is going to live inside of this folder called the 3-Circle Way. This is our gift to you. You now have access to that, right? So now all of a sudden, crystal clear expectations. Crystal clear expectations. Not only that, but it's got our org chart in there. They know who to go to get their questions answered. I mean, it's just a bunch of stuff that's inside of that folder that is an invaluable resource. You know what I mean? We keep our employee handbook on there. All that stuff is available. It's at their fingertips at this point. And then little by little, we're beginning to tweak and change and modify the systems that we know need major overhauling, right? With that MLT meeting once a month. So we're doing that from now probably until Jesus comes back or until they fire me. All right. And so that's how we went about. Now that may sound messy and but in my mind it's crystal clear. You know what I mean? Because I actually lived through it. But that's kind of how we went about systematizing what we do here at 3-Circle Church. Let's just kind of pause for a moment and just soak in all of that, because that's a lot. I basically just came in this room and just sprayed you guys down with a fire hose. So questions, thoughts, concerns, red flags, observations. What are some of the questions that you have after hearing that?
So, Blake, a question about your monthly meeting that you described, and when you're picking a system and you're sort of drilling down on that system for the month, it sounded like you have all of your sort of key ministry leaders from the different departments there, and
That's
then
right.
you're picking a system that affects every department, not just the financial system that I have may not affect. But, there's pieces, but how do you identify the one system that everybody's going to work on, and how does that work?
Well, it's not necessarily, because the thing is that we are not a church that, we're not siloed, and which I'm not saying that your church is. And so, we are constantly telling our team, that we need to focus on the whole. If we focus on the whole, then all things get better, right? And so, we may be having a conversation about how do we follow up with first-time guests, right? And that might be an adult, an adult first-time guest conversation that we're having. And so we invite everybody inside of the room to give input, right? And so it's not necessarily, okay, we're going to work on this children's follow-up process or baptism process or whatever. Like, we're literally taking, because these are the top leaders inside of our church. So they can't just come in there with the mindset, in which I tell them that all the time. You can't just come in here with the mindset of, I'm in here to speak as a representative for the student ministry. You are, but you're more than that. Like, we're here to focus on the whole, right? And so a rising tide will raise all ships. And so if we can raise the slat in the barrel of how we follow up with first-time guests, then that's going to make our church better, which is going to make our children's ministry better. Does that make sense? And so, I'm not really going in there with the mindset of they probably don't care about this system, because my assumption is they care about everything that we're doing as a church. And so they would be just as thrilled to talk about how to follow up with first-time adult guests. Our family pastor would be just as thrilled to have that conversation as he would to be talking about our kid faith baptism process that we have in place. Right? Does that make sense? So that's kind of how we roll with that. Hopefully that answered your question.
It does. And if I could ask a follow-up then. So sure. Is that meeting, it's more of kind of a processing meeting where you're surfacing ideas, because I think of, for example, a guest follow-up system, which is going to exist in almost any department.
That's right.
But they're all probably going to have their own folder with their own unique expression of that system.
That's
so
right.
Is that meeting to sort of just surface ideas that everybody didn't go back and tweak their own system, or is it to sort of get everybody on the same page so we're doing certain things in the same way? I don't know if that makes sense.
All of the above. Yes, all of the above. Everything that you just said is everything that you just said we do. And so we have lots of dry erase markers in there. We have, dry erase boards in there. We have sheets of paper, all that other kind of stuff. And so we'll, keeping in mind, going back to kind of so it's not just something I'm telling you guys, I'm smoking what I'm selling. Okay. We will begin with the end in mind. Like, even with like first-time guests, like, what do we want to make this person who is a first-time guest, what do we want to make them feel like? Right. And so if we can begin with that end game in mind, okay, now let's reverse engineer from there. It goes back to the first conversation that I had with you guys, the very first system cohort that we did, is any great system begins with the end in mind. And so we'll have that conversation first. All right, so what do we want them to feel like when they attend Three Circle Church for the first time? Okay, if I can capture that, then that's my vision. All right, that's my vision. That's the bullseye. Then we reverse engineer from there. And so if that's good for an adult, then it's also good for a student, and it's also good for a kid, and it's also good for a preschool kid. You know what I'm saying? Now, there may be different things, you know what I mean? But the steps are kind of the same. You know what I mean? It almost has equal steps. And so if you have an adult, that you're going to invite out to the guest services table in the front lobby and hand a cup of coffee, and hand a first-time visitor bag to, then if we're doing that for adults, then what can we do for the kids, right? So what can we do for the kids? What are we giving to the kids? What are we putting in the kids' hands? And so we're having a very robust dialogue about everything that you just mentioned, from adults all the way. Sometimes it will be more isolated, like if I'm talking about a financial process, and probably I would never bring up something like that inside of there, you know what I mean? Because it's not something that's going to raise the passion level inside of the room. But like our iPod manual, I spent 30 minutes the last time that we met just setting vision for that. All right, here's the goal. We want our campuses to have really clear expectations. All right, now here's the little thing that I know, because I've done this before. here's a tool that I want to introduce to you guys. Let me bounce this off of you, and you tell me if you think that this would work. And so I just laid out iPod. I stands for initial expectation. Every major ministry stream needs to fill out one of these. They need to know what the initial expectations are for students when they launch from day one. Same way with children's ministry, same way with small groups, all that other kind of stuff. P is priority. Not going to focus on this in the first year, but we need to have this on our radar because it's probably something that we need to implement down the road. You know what I mean? We do a men's event, but we're probably not going to do that the first year in the launch of that campus. The O is optional. So that's really the campus pastor to scratch out, kind of their sandbox, so to speak, to figure out how they can contextualize the mission, the vision, the values of Three Circle Church, in their campus. And then the D is don't. All right, not going to do this. That word used to be discouraged, but it wasn't strong enough for strong leaders. It's discouraged. He really didn't say no. He just kind of discouraged it. So I had to change that to don't. All right. And so I introduced that tool, and dude, you could just see the campus pastors lighten up. You could see the major ministry stream leaders lighten up because they really don't know how we are supposed to do multi-site because they've never really had systems in place. We just know that we have campuses, right? And so, so you could just see them lighten up and going, oh my God, this would be awesome. And that would totally get us to our desired outcome. What's our desired outcome? To clearly set expectations for our campus pastors. So if that's the vision, then is the iPod manual, is that the tool that's going to help us get there? Resounding yes, across the board. All right. So then after that, it's all right, sweet. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to go back to the drawing board, and I need you to come back with your iPod manual for your major ministry stream, and we're going to talk about that and have a conversation. Well, guess who's going to be in the room when we have that next conversation? The campus pastors. So we're not just handing them something. They're in the room, voice at the table, tweaking and modifying. Hey, have you thought about that instead of this? And they're going to be a part of the process as opposed to just being told what to do, right? And so that's kind of what we're doing one time a month, is that we're asking the question, where do we want to end up, beginning with an end in mind, and then reverse engineering from there, and then assigning stuff. The week we come in, everybody's got their stuff done, and we hand out new assignments. And you can do that with volunteers. You can do that with volunteers. And I know that there are moments when you go, well, how much can I ask a volunteer to do? And here's kind of my stance on that, because we hold our volunteers to a very high standard. We have the same values for our volunteers that we have for our staff. So we hold them to a very high standard. And so my deal is always, if you're going to sit at this table, I'm going to treat you like a leader. I'm not going to go, that person draws a paycheck, this person doesn't draw a paycheck. If you sit at this table, I'm going to give you the respect that you deserve, and I'm going to treat you like a leader. And if I have to have a tough conversation with you, I don't care if you draw a paycheck or not. I'm going to have that tough conversation with you. If you need to be fired, even as a volunteer, then we're going to have that conversation. Does that make sense? And so I think that you can totally, I think that you can totally do this with volunteers. Stephen Furtick, who launched Elevation Church, large church, and they actually launched with 14 people who were on his staff, and they didn't draw a paycheck until year 2. And so he held them to a very, very high standard. You know what I mean? We're talking about God and his church. We're talking about the bride. And if you cast a compelling enough vision, then people don't care about the paycheck thing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they'll eventually, have that happen and transpire, but they don't care about the paycheck thing as long as they are doing something that they believe in. So any other questions?
Yeah. So you're talking about having, some people within the church that, enjoy systems and all, helping put some of this together.
Sure.
All of our leaders outside of myself are volunteers or, bivocational. They're pretty stretched, but I know they would want to have, which we have some policies and procedures in place. But some of the areas where we're lacking, I mean, would it be, if I had 3 volunteers, would it just be kind of their responsibility of getting with these leaders to kind of spell out some of these policies? Because I know in, some areas, you don't want just some random volunteer making policy or procedure for a random, ministry. Should these volunteers come from that particular ministry that we're assigning them to, that they're filling the folder for, or is it just their responsibility to get with that department leader to kind of put that together, and populating the like your three-way folder, new passion folder, whatever that might be?
I would probably what I would probably do with that, like if you got a student pastor, and I assume that this is the question that you're asking, and so if this is not the right answer, feel free to just stop me and go, that's not what I asked, dummy. You know what I mean? But my assumption would be that if you have a student person that's overseeing your student ministry that is a great vision caster, great person, but they're not that great with systems, how I would handle that is like I would go to that individual and ask them, hey, who is somebody that you can send me, that is really great with systems? And maybe they even attend the meeting. Maybe that person even attends the meeting, but they're not, because I know plenty of people that serve on my team that appreciate great systems that are not that good with them. All right, they're not that good with them. Like my student pastor here at our South location, he is not that good with systems, but man, he appreciates a great system. He appreciates when a system is put into place and deployed, and the benefit, the byproduct of a great system. And so what I would probably do is I would probably ask, those that spearhead, that lead a major ministry stream at a volunteer level, to ask them, is there somebody inside of your major ministry stream that is great with systems? So if they are that person, awesome. If they want to bring somebody else to the table because they have, just a lot of work going on, you know what I mean? A lot of stuff happening, and they just don't have the margin to be able to fit one more thing on their schedule because they are volunteers, then I would tell them, hey, you come, but also bring another person to the table with you. In fact, I would probably do that anyway. Like I would probably say, hey, you come, but I want you to bring somebody else with you that knows and understands organization and systems and all that other kind of stuff. So that's probably how I would handle it. The more people, I say this with a grain of salt, the more people you can get involved, the better. But there is a such thing where you get too many people involved. All right. So that number for me would probably be between, that sweet spot would be, for me, would be between 8 and 12. And I want to have people in the room that are going to be able to contribute. And like most people have a major misconception of what a system is anyway. Like if you brought your student person in and they're not that great with systems, but you started out by saying, all right, let's talk about the student ministry. What is the vision for the student ministry? And you allow them to cast a vision. And then you said, you know what? That's how a system is built. We begin with the end in mind. Now that we've got that established, now let's reverse engineer from there. Like I do think that doing system is a learned process. I think some people are going to be more wired for it. I think some people are going to be better at it than others. But I do think at the end of the day that just about anybody can learn and appreciate the value of a good system. Hopefully that answered your question. Did I answer your question? Okay.
Yes. That was
okay. Good deal. So any other questions?
So the initial document that you created, the structure that you created.
Yes.
How did you decide how many folders to have in there? Because it's easy to get too general or too specific. So what criteria did you use to sort of drill down on what categories I might have?
Yeah, so you'll probably have less folders than us, because we've got a lot of stuff going on. We've got a bigger team. So I would start off with what are the major ministry streams at your church? So what are you doing, right? All right, so we do small groups. Well, that definitely needs to be a folder. Well, so we put small groups in there, but we also do some other things, like we do some adult Bible studies and stuff like that. You know what I mean? We're in the South. People love that kind of thing. And so what we did is we were like, okay, so small groups is a folder, but there's a bigger folder that probably needs to be created that small groups is going to live in. And so that's where we came up with the word spiritual formation, right? And so we came up with that word spiritual formation, and that housed everything that we do, with regards to, adult Bible studies, small groups, events that we do like First Wednesday, stuff like that. So it's pretty amazing how you'll type in a folder and then you'll go, well, wait a minute, now this probably needs to live inside of a bigger folder. And so you'll create a folder, and then you'll find out that a bigger folder needs to be created to house that. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just a process. But I would start with my major ministry streams. Worship arts would probably be a big one. Student ministry, children's ministry. Yeah. Of course, we have a folder called family ministry that houses all of that. It houses our preschool. It houses our children's ministry, birth through fifth. It houses our Mission 56. It houses our student ministry. So it's like one folder to rule them all. You know what I mean? And so, but I would start with my major ministry stream leaders as well. Okay. I just got a chat from Andrew Cromwell to everyone.
That was like at the beginning of the whole thing.
Kinds of things were in that 90-day document. That's good. So it would, so that would help. That would remind me. Let's see here. What kinds of things were in that 90-day document? Let's see if I can find that document. 90 days. And that might have been before we had Google Drive. Oh, you know what? Because I have my own Gmail account. I bet I saved that jumper on that one. Let me see here. Oh, let's see here. This is going to be fun if I can find this. Oh, I think I did. No. Hold on. This is in my old Google Drive folder. End of year. I thought that was it, but I don't think I have it. Let me see here. Let's see here. Action stuff not right. I don't know if I have the 3 circle one. Let's see if I have the one that I created for. No, dadgummit. I'll have to look for that, and if I find it, I'll shoot it over to you. So I did have a document that kind of housed all that stuff. Here's an idea of no, that's not it either. Well, now I'm just wasting your time. But like in that 90 days, I put in there stuff like I wanted to have a coffee with every elder, with every trustee. I wanted to go out to dinner with, Jana and myself, with every elder, every trustee. I put all that stuff in that 90-day document. I want to sit down with every major ministry stream leader and just talk with them, introduce myself, cast vision, that kind of a thing. And then like the meeting structure and schedule, like I just attended the meetings for a while. I let the people who they had leading those meetings, which was Chris Bell, our lead pastor, Church of 3000. He was leading every meeting on Monday morning after he preached 5 times the day before. And so I just wore it and sat in there and like offered input and all that other kind of stuff. But I didn't make any major changes or transformation until I got to the end of that year. Because I think I came on staff in August, and all of that's a blur. Because July the 11th to August the 15th of 2016, I moved, I sold a house, I unenrolled kids, I enrolled kids in school. You know what it's like to have like a big messy move. So all that stuff went down, and all that was a blur. So I didn't make any changes to our meeting schedule and structure until the end of that year. And so we moved into that new year like with a completely different meeting schedule and structure. And which I can show you the first. Let's see here. Let's see if I got the the first document that we created was our meeting schedule. Pull that up. Let's see. Drive. Oh, now it's going slow. Let me share my screen with you. Okay, you guys can see what I can see, right? If you pull up, come on. Boy, my computer's wigging out now, isn't it?
You got too many tabs open there.
I do, man. Look at that. All right, so let's see. Move you guys over here. So this is one of the first documents that I created. You know, some of the first meetings that I instituted was this. Here's our Monday meeting schedule. Who, what purpose, when, where, length, all that good stuff. Then the meeting 2, you know, it's all staff. Who, what purpose, when, where, you know, length. And then our 1:30 meeting, which is our worship planning meeting. Who, what purpose, when, where, length, you know, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you know, I started to create. This was actually the first, you know, meeting system, you know, that I created when I first came on staff, and of course we started adding to it from there. So what's some other questions? You guys got any other questions? We got a couple of minutes left. Adrian, you okay?
Hey, I'm good. Yes, I'm
Good.
here.
Good.
Yeah, I had to have a staff member in here with me, helping me this morning. I think I got invited through a wrong email. So I
gotcha.
So sorry.
No problem.
But no, this is good. We use everything on We do this same kind of thing with Dropbox.
Okay.
And I think because of that, it has become sort of a mess. So kind of it's gotten.
And it can get super messy.
Yeah. So I think we're going to move over. We'll take all of this and move it to Google or whatever. Yeah. Google Sheets. Is that
Google Drive.
Yeah.
Yep.
Google. Yeah. So this is
absolutely
great.
Well, cool. Well, hopefully this has been helpful. Has it been helpful? Did you guys take some notes?